Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have a phenomenal guest. I am so excited to grill this gentleman of all of his accomplishments, and I'm very excited to find out which company he grew and sold. Maybe it's the one that I love the most, and we'll get into that. But he's over from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and just a few of his accomplishments. One, he built a company and sold it to Intuit, arguably one of the biggest monopoly companies of software for financial services, personal financial services, I would say. Also, he's built company from 2 employees up to 400, which means he's got great leadership skills. The coolest thing, though, and this is why he's on the podcast and why I accepted him on here, is because one of his missions is to help other people become successful. He says how do I say this? Casualness creates casualties. Okay, and I've said that too before. Yeah. But what I like about it is he's helped over 1,500 business owners. Maybe they didn't start out as business owners, but they became business owners. Create a unique, powerful process so that they can improve their incomes, double their profits, and most importantly, increase the amount of people and the effectiveness of how they serve the people that they serve. And that's really what it's about, is how do we actually help people get what they want? Yeah. And so I'm super, super excited. He's the CEO of Redmond Growth Initiatives, an organization that's really designed to help other people do that. His name is Tim Redmond. Man, you got to look him up. His social media links are going to be in the bio, but I'm super excited to unleash this treat for you this morning. Take it away, Tim. Tell us about your history, how you got to where you are. Yeah. Why are you so passionate about people?
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the legacy that I've stumbled into, mostly through a lot of pain and overcoming. But when you're talking about that, it reminds me of this guy that was 66 years old. His name is Mike. His wife's name is Julie. They build sheds in Arkansas, okay? And they actually had a pretty good business. They're going about $100,000 a month in sales. And but their profits, they didn't pay themselves anything. Their profits are $5,000 a month. So they're no retirement, no legacy, struggling, working 70 hours a week. And within 2 years, we helped them build a business. Now they're hitting about $500,000 a month at a 15 to 20% profit. So now they're making 50 on the low month, $75 to $100,000 a month in profit. So they filled up their retirement accounts. He chases his wife around a condominium in Florida that they never thought they could afford. 3 weeks a month. He comes back 1 week a month just to look at his business. He's given to his church. He's helping with a program to help with kids that don't have dads and in his local community. And he came to us wanting to leave a legacy, but he just felt trapped in his business. So we'll get into that stuff. And I get so excited about what you're saying. My own story is, I was born in a very large family, one of the older ones, one of 11 kids. My parents loved making love or loved babies or both. I don't know. But but I was born with a number of complications and had several things throughout my life. But just even the first day I was born, the doctor said, hey, do these complications, had a severe cleft palate, some other complications. They didn't expect me to live through the week. And they ran me out to a priest. We're good Catholic folks. And this priest, there's a lot of priests that are really good and godly and trustworthy spiritual leaders. This guy wasn't. He later declared himself to be an atheist. But when he looked at the deformity of my mouth and the complications, he said, this boy will never be a priest and you'll never be a public speaker. And it was like a curse spoken over me. And I tell you, Samuel, it just, I was ruled by that. Grew up super shy. I wouldn't want to get in pictures. Was very self-conscious of all the operations I had on my mouth and the teeth and all that. But I overcame my fear of public speaking. That wasn't any kind of a angelic visitation. That was just doing it 1,003 times here before I finally overcame it. To learn to communicate in front of people, and became an accountant, a CPA, worked for PriceWaterhouseCoopers. I didn't enjoy it that much. I didn't like the accounting, but I figured I would learn more about how businesses operate because I really knew I wanted to consult businesses and buy and sell businesses, and so that's what I do now. But there's been a number of challenges that we had. For me, we sold our business to Intuit. I came on board with Intuit, and we had built this company, this software company. It's called Tax and Accounting Software Corporation. What did we do? I just told you. What's the name of our company? I just told you. It was a very functional name. And so I came to work for them to help transition our 22,000 clients over to Intuit. And then I started a nonprofit traveling around the world, teaching people about leadership, lessons I've learned, and how to grow their organization. Talk to business conferences, pastor conferences, political leaders in various countries all over the world. And inevitably, I would be asked, hey, do you offer coaching? I go, sure, what's your question? I'd coach them right then and there, not realizing that there are like businesses out there that make millions of dollars a year coaching clients. And now that's what I am now. And, we're generating millions of dollars. We've got, 150 businesses we're working with right now. We're growing very fast. And so a huge breaking point was, do I have what it takes to really press through? And I remember starting this coaching company, and people, in droves, massive numbers of people stayed away from my business. They stayed away massively. And I don't know if it was my bad breath or body odor or whatever it was, but it was like I would repel people. But I had to learn to either go work for somebody, or just, if I'm going to make my future, create a future that I was proud of, I knew I needed to do it through owning a business. And doggone it, I got in, I defined my purple cow, I created a workflow, I wrote scripts, I did all the hard stuff. I was so afraid of no. I had to press through, get numb to the no, and just allowed no's to be my energy. Matter of fact, we actually made it one of our KPIs, key performance indicators. Samuel, check this out. We built a flourishing coaching business based on a 99.75% rejection rate. We were cold calling. We got our first 100 clients, cold calling. That's tough. And we closed 1 out of 400 businesses we cold call. And but we just did a whole lot of it. And the thing is just learning. One of our KPIs is how many no's can you get in a day? You tell me how many no's you're willing to absorb in a day, and I'll predict your future with massive accuracy. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
So it just, when I went through that time of just really taking personal responsibility to own my life and do whatever I needed to do to learn to get comfortable in a state of discomfort, that's when building my legacy really began. And it has made a world of difference, and I can't wait to share that with more people. So
awesome. Well, I love it. I'm going to ask questions now because I've got a lot of them. I think some things are funny, but if you've been listening to the show a while, then you have probably seen this come up multiple times where people come on and I'm excited to talk to them. I have no idea necessarily why, but then we find out we have a lot in common. So I'm not Catholic. I grew up Mormon, LDS, Latter-day Saint, whatever, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, however you want to say it. They keep changing their names. Like, let's just pick one. And anyways, Catholics was easy. It was one word. But I'm I'm the 7th of 11 kids. So
are you kidding me?
I'm not even kidding.
Oh my gosh.
What number are you?
Kids?
Yeah.
Jeez, that is, I have not talked to somebody that grew up in a family of one of 11. This is just amazing.
Yeah. One of 11. Our excuse is we didn't have TV. So I think that's why my parents,
That's great. I love it.
No, I mean, there's always heavy religious influence saying that that's what should happen. Now, the real question is, Tim, how many kids did you end up having after being raised in a family of 11? How many did you duplicate yourself?
We have 4 and no more. They're very above average children, thanks to the influence of my wife. And they're my oldest is 32, 31. He works in the business he really runs the business, so I can be busy looking at businesses to buy. And then my next son, he was a college football player. He's now a physical trainer, online trainer. And then my daughter's she's 24 and she's almost done with dental school, so working her butt off learning the trade here. So
cool.
Yeah. Just 4.
Just 4. Well, that's enough. We're at 3 right now. We just had a little baby girl about 6 months ago, and we have 2 boys that are older. And my little baby girl just broke her leg, fell off our bed, fractured her femur. So,
oh my gosh!
Yeah, kind of crazy.
So quickly though, right?
Yeah. Well, hopefully they heal quickly. We got a lot of trips planned, so we're just trusting that my mom can take care of her for a little bit. Then the next week we got another person coming in. So,
oh my gosh,
we'll see. It'll all be good. It's just funny that we're one of 11, both of us. And I think it's funny that you had kind of a different experience than I had, right? You had a priest who essentially cursed you for your complications, that you would never be a priest and never be good at public speaking and stuff. I had an opposite experience, probably not at the same age, right? When I remember vividly that when I was about, I don't know, probably 5 or 6, wow. I was on a trip to the dump with my grandpa. And we were in a little red Ford Ranger, little metal rack on the back, had just dropped off a load at the dump. We were driving home, windows down, warm summer air blowing through, and we had the radio on, and we were just talking. And then he reached over, turned down the radio, put his wrinkled hand on my knee and said, "You know what, Sam? You have a voice that's just really pleasant to listen to. You could maybe even be on the radio one day. You're going to be a great leader." And somehow at that point, I knew that being complimented with a radio voice was not a compliment. So I was like, I don't know about that, but
you have a perfect face for the radio, huh?
Yeah, perfect face for the radio. And anyways, from that time, it was my dream to be a motivational speaker and somebody who goes up and speaks. I've since learned that I hope to never use motivation in speaking as much as possible. Inspiration is far more lasting and fun to have. But, what's interesting about this when we're talking about legacy is there's certain times in our lives when people say stuff and without even recognizing it, we choose to accept that identity onto ourselves that may or may not be true. I want you to talk about this a little bit on how you help a business through this, because this happens all the time. Most business owners, they've been told no, they're going to fail by everybody that loves them, and then on top of that, right. they get going, and then people in the industry start telling them how they feel about them. And so how have you helped coach people through the mindset, especially as people, that gentleman you talked about building sheds, he probably loves building sheds, and he's probably thrilled to be making $60,000 a year. That maybe is more than either of his parents, his wife's parents or his parents made. So he feels like he's winning at $5,000 a year. And there's a lot of people who feel like because they're doing better than their siblings, because they're doing better than their parents, because they're doing better than the people that they grew up around, then they feel like they're on top of the world winning, and they haven't even scratched their potential because nobody spoke life into them. So how do you help somebody shift their mental mindset to be worthy of earning more and not feeling bad for really becoming a real success and serving more people?
So a book of wisdom that we share, or a spiritual book, one of the heroes in there, he said, all things are possible to him who believes. what you believe is a lever that moves the world. Now, the belief is so strong that even if you believe a lie, you give power to that belief to begin to rule in your life, to begin to show up in your life in some way. And so when we're working with somebody like Mike, he didn't feel successful. Now, he may have felt successful, because his parents had less, but he was working too hard and didn't have enough. So he reached out to us because he had heard, another friend of him that was using our service. And so he's come into a level of success where he can choose how he spends his time. He can choose where he's got an abundance of finances where he can give to the causes that he wants to. So what we do, Samuel, this is really, really important. We do look at what does that person believe about themselves, about their business. One of the first things we do is we look at their actual performance, and then we'll actually create a whole new business model based on their capacity. And it's what we cover in one of our first calls, and we give that as like a wealth building tool at no cost to people. Really, really powerful. And so once we have that capacity of their business based on what they say, not based on, we'll do market research, we'll do all that, but based on how their business operates, we get them a new capacity. From that, we'll chart a 3-year goal based on that new capacity. Then what we do is we want to get them to change how they look at their business, change how they look on the inside, right? I call leadership is really improving your looks. It's not how you look in the mirror, but how you look at what you're looking at. And so what we do is in the first 3 months of working with them, we'll get a blueprint that we implement. And we have this thing called rush to revenue, where we have a dramatic impact on their business. They see the change fairly quickly. And then so they see the outside world changing. So they begin to go on the inside and start believing that too. So it's an indirect method of doing that. We have weekly coaching. We have mindset training. We do a lot of that. Our most of our coaching is like, let's get these results. It's not, hey, let's imagine, we're this law of attraction's at work. Just the law of getting off your bottom and working is the law that we teach. But we help them do it smartly. And so it's leveraging their belief and shifting their belief based on results they didn't think their business could perform or could create. And with that, they go, holy baloney, I think we can get something going. And we've seen many people like this, Mike and Julie, now they got a $5-6 million a year business. They can sell it for who knows what, but it's a goose that's laying a golden egg every month of a $75,000, $100,000 profit. So, but that we didn't start there. It was about a 2-year process to get there.
Sure. And so I'm just curious, do you have examples of people that you've tried to help, right? They've paid you for the help, but then they weren't able to actually shift their belief. Maybe you still have this rush to revenue type period, and they see, oh my gosh, but then for whatever reason in their environment, outside of it, their interaction with you, they aren't able to make the mental shift, and they end up sabotaging themselves and just not quite making it. And what's the difference between that person and the person who does make it? Like, I'm sure you've seen both. If you've coached 1,500 people, there's no way you didn't have some that didn't make it, right? We've all had clients who just didn't quite keep up with what they were supposed to do. So what's the difference between those two mindsets? Because the people listening, they're thinking, who am I, number one, and how can I become the person who's winning? What are the things that I might not even be thinking about that are my habits that I could start shifting these habits to increase my success? So what were the people that weren't successful? What were they doing that ultimately made it so that they didn't catch the vision the same way?
That's the operative word here, Samuel. That's the operative word. There's really one thing that separated them, just one. And my hero tells a story about a guy that built his house on a rock and another guy that built his house on sand. and the storms came and the house in the sand, was demolished. It wasn't built on a foundation. But the house on the rock, they were having a party when the storm came in. They have regular, everything was great. And my hero said the difference between the two is that the guy that builds his house on the rock is he that hears my sayings and does them. The sandman is he that hears my saying and doesn't do them. The singular difference here is you've got to be a doer. And the folks that haven't been successful with our coaching, we do so much of, we're a do-it-for-you coaching company. We used to just coach and, hey, do these 7 things, do these 4 things, and let's get back next week. Well, it was frustrating. So I just built out my staff. So we did a bunch of stuff. So they're going to get some level of success, but not near what they could because we're doing. But the lack of their doing, hearing what there should be doing, listen to your podcast. There's a nugget here, nugget there. Oh, that's a great idea. It's not a great idea. It's a source of skepticism and cynicism if you don't act on it. It just becomes another worthless piece of straw just floating around in the wind. It's not going to land on anything. So, you gotta like be like an extreme doer. It's like, I don't care if I've got to stay till midnight. I'm going to get 100 calls in today. I'm going to get 100 no's today. Doggone it. I'm just going to stare that in the face. You get 100 no's in a day. You do that 5 days a week. I will prophesy something. I will predict your future. You will be successful. And if you're doing it with enthusiasm, you're doing it contagiously, you're doing it when you're learning and adapting. I had a guy that called me the other day, actually a couple of weeks ago, and he says, "Hey, Tim, I'm doing this new business, and it's cold calling, and boy, it's really going rough." And I go, "Well, tell me about the sales workflow. What's the first call like?" He said, "Well, the first call is 2 hours long." Wow, what? Your first date, you're asking them to marry you? He goes, "Huh?" I said, "Yeah, that's like having a 2-hour call with somebody before they really know who you are. That's like going on a date and asking somebody to marry you. I mean, you may be good, but you're not that good."
Nobody's that good.
And so he's like, I said, "Yeah, just the first call is to see if the main decision maker has 10 minutes in their schedule, and you give them a huge benefit you're going to give them during that 10 minutes. Like in our 10-minute call, we're going to give you that capacity model for your business. And it changes the way you look at your future, your business. It jacks you up with truly go get them, apply it now, get it done kind of motivation. Emotions create motion. So I'm not against that, the emotional round, but they've got to see that it's something that's very doable and realistic. We create it in front of them right there during a 10-minute call. Boom. Now we go into the true assessment of their business, which we have this growth plan that I want to offer to your folks if they're business owners. So,
sure.
That's a huge difference. Is look at it. I mean, think about people that are successful, Samuel. They're doers. How many people in your business have got more letters after their names of CFP and CPL and ABC and who knows what? And yet they're struggling. They're like struggling artists here, just lacking clients because they're not getting off their butt and moving. That's right. What it takes.
And then when the times get hard, they think, "Oh, well, I'm going to go differentiate myself by getting more certifications." And then when everybody else falls out, they're going to come to the certified person. And it's like, no, because you're going to be non-existent doing your studying, while the other person is building a name and a brand and like a reputation. And by the time you get back with your certifications, nobody's going to know who you are.
We had our clients, I would say most of them, explode during COVID, explode in growth. Some of them were completely shut down by horrible governance. That's my own opinion. But there's many, I would say most of our clients that say, keep knocking on the doors. keep emailing and texting, get after your client. That's your most valuable property in your own company. It's not your equipment, or it's just continue to communicate with them and make sure it's safe to do it, that they feel safe in your services. And they literally just exploded. Many of them exploded in growth. I remember one guy had his record month was in April of 2020. After the nation was shut down for a month, he's like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. We just followed your advice, kept knocking on doors, just do.
Right. And what's so cool about hearing this from Tim, right, is hopefully you get to see the video of this on YouTube, or you can see maybe you're watching some of the links, the social media clips, but he just looks like a normal guy. So what that means is either the priest was blind or he got some reconstructive help, okay, which either one is good for me. But what's crazy is for him to become a public speaker, for him to get comfortable even being on a podcast. Sometimes podcast is, I do both. I get on stage and I do podcasts. Sometimes podcasting is harder than getting on stage and interacting with a big group of people.
Yeah.
Because there's only two people in this conversation. And so we've got to keep it going. If it starts to die out, then that's our problem, right? But if you're on stage, it's a one-way conversation for the most part. So, but he became who he is through doing. He said it in the beginning. He didn't just all of a sudden magically get blessed by the priest and was able to public speak fearlessly and go forward. He overcame it through an enormous amount of consistent effort of putting himself out there and dealing with rejection, dealing with potentially people not liking the way he looks or what he said or whatever. And that's how he's got to where he is. And so then when he can come on and say, look, this is the way forward.
Right.
He's not saying it because he wants you to go through a bunch of stuff he didn't go through. There's coaches out there that'll do that. You have to go through the suck. But it's like Donald Trump saying, oh, my father gave me a small loan of $1 million. It's like, okay, where's my dad giving me a small loan of $1 million? And to be fair, it was a small loan compared to the billions that he had. But it's like...
But Samuel, check this out. Most of what I did and any kind of skill I developed, I did it afraid. I did it horrified. I did it vomiting in the bathroom before I got up on stage. I did it feeling like I'm the biggest loser. I mean, I had to do it. I had to ignore my feelings and press ahead. And sometimes I was like a therapist because people were able to come into a deep level of sleep when they listened to me. They really got help by catching up on their sleep, put them to sleep. So, it's a, I will say this, Samuel, that the people watching this right now, that person watching it, the world around you is starving for your leadership. It's starving for you to do what you do afraid. Just do it afraid. Think about the time when you were 8 months old or a year and a half, or whenever you learned to walk. And I mean, all my kids, and I saw most of my younger brothers and sisters learn to walk, and they would get up, tripod it, get up, they'd be shaking, they'd bounce head first on the concrete, and hot tears coming down their eyes with a big golf ball bump on their forehead. They're still trying to get up again. The humans around me are walking. I'm going to walk, And so it's that determination. It's that if you want to get a degree, get a PhD. It's that pig-headed determination just to keep going. That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about this, because something you just brought up was actually something I wrote down. One is people are desperate for your leadership, and you should do it whether you feel prepared or not, as far as you might be afraid of doing it. But this is what's interesting is Tim mentioned earlier that he fell into coaching, or those are my words. He didn't fall into it, but he would go out helping people, and then he would get asked, do you coach? Do you do these things? People often listen to this podcast and others, or they're seeing other business owners living their dreams, and they think, well, what would I do if I ran a business? I think one of the best places to start, this doesn't mean where it ends, but I think two of the most effective questions to start with are, what is a skill that people are regularly asking you to help them with? Is it babysitting? Is it cleaning? Is it organizing? Is it cutting grass? Is it that you have a truck and people need trucks? Find whatever it is. What are you most often, what's the most frequent request for you to serve somebody else? Just find out what it is. Just like ask yourself that question. That's number one. And then number two is, do you enjoy it, right? Because if you're getting requests to do something and you're like resenting every time you go help somebody because you really don't want to help them because you don't enjoy the activity, well, then don't go make a business out of that, okay? But if it's something that you're passionate about, you love doing, and people are asking you for that service frequently, then that's a good idea of like, okay, I must be above average at said skill. And not only am I above average, because there's a lot of above average performers that nobody wants to deal with because they are just not fun people to be around, but not only are you above average, people enjoy your help with it. They didn't ask your brother, they didn't ask your mom, they asked you for it. So you're above average and people enjoy being helped by you. That's a good direction to think about, how could I then hire somebody like Tim, or maybe you hire somebody else, and then once your business gets going, you hire Tim, whichever way you want to do it. But how do we turn this skill, this thing that people are asking for, into a multi-million-dollar business, just like Tim did? That wasn't his business initially. He formed his life into that business because that's what people were asking for. So talk to that a little bit about how you might help somebody identify that if they're in that stage where they want something. How would you help them go through that process?
Okay, so here's something that, and it may sound like I'm arguing with you, but I think the clashing of ideas actually creates the contrasting of ideas, actually creates a learning event. And so you mentioned the two things, what do you ask a lot about and what do you like doing? And so I think my own personal view, because I have personally mentored over 520 somethings. I love doing that and helping them with their idealism as it collides with realism.
It's a fun conversation. Always.
Built a lot of multi-million-dollar companies with that formula. And I would say is, don't worry if you love it or not. It's way oversold. And so we don't love something, so we check out. And it's like, stop hating yourself. Stop hating your future and being so feelings driven here. It's like, do whatever you do, get the best at that, even if you hate it. I know when I first started, I so hated accounting and auditing and consulting of businesses in this CPA firm, this PriceWaterhouseCoopers firm, that I remember we started with 15 people, and after the first 6 months review, I was rated the bottom of those 15. And I've never been on the bottom of anything. I mean, wrestling and athletics and pursuit of academics and whatever I went after. I mean, you just grind and get it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I had to take an inventory. Why I hate this stuff? Well, it's obvious that I hate it, and it would produce actions in line with that belief. And I go, well, how can I make this part of my purpose? How can I make this what I'm doing right now? It's kind of like, when we first have coaches come in, we have them have 3 or 4 months of solid cold calling. Well, I didn't get a college degree. I didn't come here to do a bunch of cold calling. That's for the birds. Well, if you don't learn to overcome your emotions and do things because they've got to get done, you're short selling yourself on the development you've got to have to really be a successful legacy leaver, legacy creator. And so I would say, who gives a rat's behind how much you love it? Just be the best at it. And I remember focusing on saying, I'm going to be the best at it. The next year, even a year and a half into it, I went from the bottom to one of the top two. They wouldn't say who the top, because a dear friend of mine, we went to college together, but we were the top two people in performance in our group. And so don't, especially if you're younger, if you're under 50 or if you're under 80, let's just make it so we include everybody. Don't worry about having to love it. Pour heart and soul into it and learn the skills of doing what you need to do, regardless of how you feel. Do it with like Martin Luther King Jr. talked about sweeping the streets, so that the angels in heaven would just sing hallelujah to the excellent job you did, and so that's get after it. And who cares how it's not what I love to do. Well, get the frick out of your parents' basement and get a job and move out and make something of yours. Who you become in the process of doing stuff you don't like is worth doing stuff you don't like. It's worth it. I'm just telling you. Is that too straight here?
No, actually, I love that phrase. That's going to be a clip on Instagram for sure. You're right. I don't disagree with anything you've said. In fact, I'm going to call back to something you said previously, and that is that your brain believes whatever you tell it, even if it's a lie.
Yeah.
Okay? So I do agree that there's stuff I don't care what profession you're in, even if you love what you do. Maybe you love performing, maybe you love playing football, maybe you love singing. There's always going to be aspects of what you do that you don't love. They're the necessary parts of, like for me, I don't like paperwork. I don't like doing certain things. Cold calling, I did door-to-door for 5 years. I didn't mind door-to-door. But cold calling on the phone, I'll be honest, it's not my favorite thing. Like, not even remotely close to my favorite thing. Yeah. And sure, that probably hold me back to a point in my business. The question is, do I really care? And am I willing to do the cold calling if that's what I need to do, right? There's a lot of different factors there that we could get into in my own personal business, which I'd be open to. But I think that what's interesting, and what I'm saying here is, you might not enjoy it, but for me, if you don't like the cold calling, then you don't sit there and say, oh, I love the cold calling. You don't lie to yourself, right? I wouldn't. I would reframe what I'm doing and say, rather than saying, oh, I love cold calling, I wouldn't say that. I'd say, man, I just really enjoy having quality conversations with people. I really enjoy interrupting people's day and smiling at them, and then I enjoy the result of when I get a sale. I just love getting a sale. I know it's only 1 out of every 400, you said, but that's okay. 1 out of every 400. Yeah. I just got to keep calling these 400 people because one of them's going to say yes. And I love finding the needle in a haystack. Yeah. Like you've got to.
I love who I'm becoming by continuing strong in my emotional state management, which is huge if you're going to be an entrepreneur and really any kind of legacy leaver.
Sure.
Any kind of legacy creator. It's just, and as your business grows, like my business grew and grew and grew, and now I'm only doing those things I love to do, but I had to get the thing going and in operation, and I had to do all the stuff I didn't necessarily like to do. But now, I'm a 62-year-old spoiled brat. I'm doing just what I want to do.
Hey, and I want everybody to get to that point. But you're right. We all have to start somewhere. And if you're still in your parents' basement, as you say, you're right. You should go do something that you don't want to do, but you are okay with the result of, right? And there, I have my list of fallbacks. As far as my business ever fails, I have my list of fallbacks. And at the very bottom of that list is food services, being a waiter or a waitress. I can go do just about anything else and make enough money to keep me out of a waiter job. I would go do fast food services before I did a waiter again. It did not enjoy the process. I didn't enjoy any part of it. Okay. And I don't like food services in general. It's not my cup of tea, but there's just so many other ways to make money. I love doing what I'm doing right now, but I'd go back to knock doors again. I would go do cold calls again because I understand statistics enough that I understand the numbers. Something I train a lot about when I do public speaking is I actually am scared of the dark. Right. And that's a full truth transparency statement. I'm not saying that in hyperbole. I do not like the dark. I'm scared of it. When there's a noise in my house, I shut the door and my wife is like, are you going to go see what happened? I'm like, no, I'm not. It's dark out there. Well, you could flip on the light. No, I'm going to stay in my bed. You can go if you want. But I don't, it sounds silly, but I don't kill bugs in my house. It's not my thing. Okay. Yeah. But as soon as the lights come on, I'm no longer scared. So what happens is people operate out of fear because they don't understand.
Right.
And so they think, man, I'm going to keep calling these and I'm never going to be successful. I've done enough cold calling, I've done enough knocking doors that I know the numbers are I will be successful. So it's like, do I love the process? No, but it's the process and I love being successful. And so I'm going to do it because I understand it. I think the biggest hurdle is people who are coming in and they haven't gained the confidence of like, if you do enough, you will be successful. And that's one of the things when I'm coaching, I actually have gone through great lengths to show people my numbers. Because I'll have people come in and they are objective by every metric better at my business than I am. However, I just do more than they do. Like I just contact more. It's like you're 50% more likely to help a family than I am, but you don't talk to enough people. That's not my fault. I can't help you talk to more people. You have to do the work. But I'm worse at this business than you, or you are better, brand new. You're better than I am. I just do more, and I think that's important for a leader to be able to show, look, I'm going through the same suck as you are. I'm just doing it more because I understand the result is there. Where other people, they're scared to do the result or they're scared to do the action because they aren't confident in the outcome.
Let's talk about confidence for a second. Now, we think, you think about the cart and the horse, okay? We think, well, as soon as I get enough confidence, then I'm going to do it. But confidence is the cart, and the horse, the way you develop confidence is getting out there and doing it afraid, do it imperfect, do it sucky. Just, you used that term earlier. Just don't. Confidence happens when you have the courage to stay in there and you learn the skill, even though it's so imperfect and you're not getting the results you want. If you stay in there, you will develop the results enough to where you look back and go, wow, I can do that now. And confidence follows that horse. That's the cart that follows the horse. Confidence doesn't come first. Confidence is a reward for you sticking your neck out there and doing it afraid, trying it out and getting after it and keep on pounding, keep on getting after it. And then just like learning to walk, it wasn't perfect. As a matter of fact, we take videos of our kids learning to walk and they look like they're just, ready to fall over any moment. And boom, they eventually start running, just within months. And so that's how life goes. That's kind of a lesson for everything starts small, but if you stay after it, you'll develop the confidence and the small becomes big.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're exactly right. So, man, there's just not enough time to go through all of the things I want to go through with you. But I'm curious if somebody did want to get in touch with your company, reach out to you and have you, one, find that capacity report. I think that's a huge thing, performance versus capacity. Look at where you're at. What's the capacity doing what you're doing? What if we just made a few metrics? What's your capacity? That alone could shock people. And could completely transform their view of what's possible if, So that alone, if somebody just wanted that and then maybe wants to take the next step, where would they contact you and how they go about that process?
Well, my email is tim@Redmond Growth. It's REDMOND Growth. And you'll have it in the show notes there. Or if they wanted to go onto our site and just check us out a little bit, go out to redmondgrowth.com. and fill out one of the forms. And then what I need you to do is just talk about how you love Samuel's podcast, you love Samuel speaking, some kind of leave him a 5-star review, somehow tie into that. And what we'll do is not just help you build a new business model, a capacity model for your business, but we'll bring you through an entire growth plan. That's normally $2,500. And we look at where you're at, where you want to be, where you're going to be in 3 years, the things that are blocking you. And then we actually create 8 to 10 concrete action items for you to get to that 3-year goal with or without us. And even going through the growth plan, people can normally add $100,000 profit to their business if they already got an existing business going. So we normally charge $2,500, but if you'll say, hey, I love Samuel, I love his podcast, we'll waive that fee. You've actually got to own a business. And, but if you talk about how much you love Samuel, this podcast. We'll waive that $2,500 fee. We'll give you an entire growth plan at no cost. It's it's a new set of lenses that you'll look at your business with. That by itself, you'll be on a highway to moving fast in your business. It's really, really powerful. It's the result of me doing this well over 2,000 times with people, and it's just been great.
Wow, that's incredible, man. I'm going to take advantage of it. You guys should as well. Because, we got to grow. And that's what I love about this. How do we get better? So let me finish off with just a few more questions here. One word, one sentence answers, okay? So nothing too crazy here. But what do you think right now is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
Me starting a podcast.
Okay, hey, that's good. At least you know.
More than one word.
Hey, that's good.
I pulled a Joe Biden here.
Oh man, that's a whole nother topic.
Made in America.
No, it's all good. So, what do you believe is your greatest accomplishment to this point in your life?
Staying married and loving my wife more today than the day I married her. We've been married for 33 years.
That's incredible. I'm looking forward for that day. That's awesome. We're going on 7 right now. So,
almost there.
Yeah, almost. Well, it's 1 year at a time.
Yeah.
So then, what do you think the hardest thing you've ever overcome has been?
My fear of public speaking. It really was monumental. Just huge self-doubt and fear and ridicule, and people did make fun of the way I spoke. I would slur, I would speak through my nose, I'd get so nervous I would stutter, and I saw my futures getting in front of people, and so I just pressed through no matter the results in the short term. So
awesome. And then if you had 1 to 2 books that you would recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience you think could get them started on a good path, what would those be?
Well, I think if you're an entrepreneur, I loved Ben Horowitz, The Hard Things About Hard Things. And then I'd also recommend, and this is a little self promotion, but my book called The Power to Create, which is really the coaching system I've got in there, but it's from a faith-based. I wrote it to pastors and Christian business owners, and but I've had all kinds of people read this and give me really good feedback on it. So
fantastic, love it. So here's the final question, and really, what I would say the real reason I do the whole podcast is to find out this one thing about people and everybody I interview. So if you died today, okay, and 6 generations from now you were able to come back. So we're talking about your great, 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 great grandchildren. They're sitting around a table discussing your life, the impact you had, and the legacy that Tim left. What would you want them to be saying about you 6 generations from now?
He lived to give.
I love it. Well, he's definitely done that today.
And I would be, I do plan on taking at least 5 generations on long hikes, because that's where you get kind of tired, you get thin, and those become perfect teaching moments. So I plan on taking long hikes with great-great-grandchildren.
Awesome. Hey, well, I'm excited for that. I'll come join you for one. Or you can come to Arizona and join me. It's warmer here.
Yes, absolutely.
Where do you go on hiking in Oklahoma? Just like walking on the flat?
Yeah, there's I love mountain biking, and so you can actually walk on that. It's called Turkey Mountain. It's one of the best biking mountains.
Really?
Believe it or not. I love going down into California and near Palm Springs, and was hiking up in the deserts. I've done that. I've got a guy that's 10 years my elder that just leaves me in the dust. And so he's one of my mentors here. I'm like, boom, he's all over it. I've done hiking up in the east of Seattle in the mountains there, Snoqualmie, and then of course I love Breckenridge and all those mountains in Colorado. So we've done some 14s and
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hey, you got to get out there and live your life, because you only get one of them to live generally. And you're going to be remembered how you live rather than how you want people to remember. And I believe that you're worth being remembered. So thank you so much, Tim, for gracing us with your presence. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show.
Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.